It's 6:30. It's Thursday, April 11th. So we are gonna take the City of Orinoco Planning and Zoning Commission agenda and call this meeting to order here at 6:30. First on the agenda is roll call. Commissioner Kathy Brandt Rucker, Chair, I'm here. Commissioner Wendy Phillips, Vice Chair.
Present.
Commissioner Jim Richards.
Present.
Commissioner Jim Phillips.
Present.
Commissioner Scott Sorensen.
Present.
Commissioner Colleen Frye.
Here.
Commissioner John Evans.
Present.
We also are gonna check for those who are staff members, staff Phil Carlson from Stan
Yes,
Tech.
here, commissioners.
Staff member Joe Palin, also a Stan Tech. And new staff, Jason Baker, our Orinoco City Administrator, is here. So thank you for coming. Next is approval of agenda for the evening. Are there any changes or additions?
The only thing I wanted to put down on old business, which would be under E, is Irv and his, I guess if you want to look at it, whatever structure he's got going, I think it's a garage office type thing that he has from Northland. And again, I don't know where that's at, if he's got all of that in so that we've got a building permit or not, but I just want to make sure that it's on there, that we can kind of take a look at that, and Phil knows that one well, so.
Okay, so adding letter E,
Mhm.
basically an update, the garage replacement structure,
Right,
okay? So I have an update under old business, letter E. Anything else from anyone?
I make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
second,
Any other discussion? All in favor of the agenda as amended? Say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay? All right, the agenda is been approved for this meeting. Next is approval of minutes. And we did in our last meeting have a short discussion about, we have city staff that is going to review the minutes or the recordings of the meetings out there, and will be getting minutes to us. So there's
yeah.
probably an update on that, or,
Yeah, you want to go over that one, so.
Yeah, so we did have someone hired and they have since resigned. That was the part-time position, but the interviews have already happened and are happening for a replacement.
super,
So I'm hoping by our next meeting, we'll have some news that we have another one hired.
I do know in the past, there's been some discussion, just as a new commissioner here, getting our minutes out there as soon as we can for the community. It does take some resources to do that, so city staff is able and willing, once we've got the staff member hired to do that. My personal thought is, once they're ready, even in a draft form, I want people in the community to know what's going on.
Sure.
But we do bring all the minutes back here to read through them, make sure they're correct, and approve them officially as well, but.
And I think that was discussion at an earlier meeting that we would put them out as draft and until with a draft watermark
Yep.
until they were approved.
But people want to know what's going on, and
Right.
we want to get information out there. It just helps keep everybody current. Especially since we meet monthly, so. Any more discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, we're gonna move on to our public hearing. Our first hearing is actually posted for 6:35, and I show 6:34. So we will just hang a little bit here.
It states in here, it's a continuation of a public hearing from March 14. Do we need to wait until the 6:35 mark when the public hearing is still open?
We probably don't, but I know Renee did go and publish 6:35, so,
Again, okay,
Yep.
that's fine.
yep. So you probably just have seconds left. Just to comment on that is we did last month, but with the minutes not being out, We opened the public hearing. We took public comment. We did not officially close the public hearing. It was actually continued, so it is technically still open. And it is now 6:35, so we will officially continue with our already open public hearing at 6:35. We did take public comments last month, but I will ask if there is anyone who would like to speak for or against the application. And the hearing here is, this is a public hearing to consider a lot split at 405 East Center Street in Orinoco. So I'll ask again if there's anyone here that would like to speak for or against the application. And a third time, is there anyone here who would like to speak for or against the application? Hearing no one, I will close the public hearing officially at 6:36. And that goes into our staff report. Phil, did you want to speak to the staff report that was included in our packet?
Yes, Madam Chair and Commissioners, the request in front of you is for a lot split, which is simply adjusting the lot line between two residential lots. You've got my report dated March 14th, and this really is a very simple matter. And kudos to the property owners for taking care of this. It's not uncommon for older properties and structures to not be exactly where people thought they were. And the garage on this lot, the Goodman lot, sits very close and even over the lot line onto the Sorensen lot. So they are swapping a little piece of property as shown on the survey to make sure that that garage is on the proper lot and actually has the proper setbacks as well. So everything is in order with the certificate of survey that was submitted. And I do recommend approval of this with 6 findings of fact. And if the commission agrees, they could take a motion to recommend that approval as in my report of March 14th with the 6 findings. I'd be happy to answer any other questions if you have them.
So I make a motion that we recommend approval.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Is there any discussion?
I'd just like to add, I think this is great that we have 2 neighbors agreeing to settle it and work it out and not make a big deal of it. So I think this is good.
And with your recommendation, are you looking at what is in the packet here where it says recommendation that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of the lot split at 405 East Center Street for Michael Goodman as submitted on the survey from WSE Massey Engineering and Land Surveying Limited, dated 1/5/2024, with the following findings of fact. Findings of fact for approval of lot split, and then there are 6 here. First finding of fact, Michael Goodman owns the lot at 405 East Center Street. Garrett Sorensen owns the adjacent lot to the north at 222nd Avenue Northeast. Finding of fact 2, the garage on the Goodman lot encroaches slightly onto the Sorensen lot. Finding 3, Goodman has applied to the city for a lot split under Orinoco Code Section 151.002. Finding of fact 4, the Orinoco zoning code requires a 6-foot side setback for an accessory structure such as a garage. The existing Goodman garage is non-conforming, encroaching into the required setback. Finding of fact 5, the proposed lot split as depicted on the submitted certificate of survey adjusts the lot line between the 2 lots in the vicinity of the Goodman garage so that 832 square feet of property is added to the Goodman lot and provides more than 6 feet of clearance between the garage and the new lot line. And finding of fact 6, the proposed lot line adjustment meets the standards in section 151.002 for approval of a lot split. So those are the 6 findings of fact included with that. Any other discussion on the lot split? Seeing none, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. And so that does go as a recommendation to city council to approve the lot split at 405 East Center Street in Orinoco. So we are a body that does recommend to the council. This will be heard at the city council meeting officially on, get the date here.
Be
Next.
the 16th, is that right, April 16th?
April
So
sixth,
next Tuesday.
next Tuesday. Any questions for us on the lot split? Okay. We are now at 6:40. We are to public hearing 2. Hearing for 6:40 PM or shortly thereafter. It's a continuation of the public hearing still open from March 14th, 2024. This public hearing is to consider a sign variance for 1460 Cedar Center Avenue Southeast, Orinoco, Minnesota. And the time was 6:40 there when we opened our public hearing. We did take public comment last month, but we will again, if there's anyone who would like to speak for or against the application. You just identify yourself and
Fred Birch, one of the owners of Glenn's Motor Coach. Did you all get pictures? Remember last time you asked what a picture would look like? I just want to make sure you got the new picture. I did drop them off.
This be it?
Nope,
Nope.
I don't think we did. based
No,
on
we
what I've
did
seen.
I dropped them off. I did my due diligence.
Yeah, we just got.
I got 2 copies left there, but I did drop like 12 of them off.
Ah,
That shows it what it'd be first to scale. What it'd look like on the building. I mean, there's like 36.5 feet in between the windows. And don't quote me, I think the sign is. Had it worked out in my head a few minutes ago. 15 or, somewhere around 15 wide and like 5 foot high. It's just made out of Alumicore, which is maybe a 1/4 inch thick is all, which is just bolted right out of the building, screwed out of the building. And like I said, there's plenty of room for bigger signs, but we're not requesting that. We just want something that looks a little more fit for the size of the wall that's there. And it's,
will it be that color? Will it look just like
I'd
that?
have to
or-
ask my wife, you know how that goes. It'll be close to that color and shade, maybe we're gonna try and match it as close as we can.
Black with white writing.
Okay,
Well, yeah, you know how it goes with colors, that's out of my league.
you guys see this?
But,
Thank you.
It won't be lit or anything.
No,
so,
it's
yeah.
unlit. It's just gonna be, like I say, the aluminum core is maybe a 1/4 inch thick.
And
And it
with
just
the wind up there,
screwed right to the building.
it needs
I
to
think
be.
you're right with the wind. You
Yeah,
wanna
wind
have
up
it
there
as
is
flush
so
as you can
strong.
get, yeah.
Yeah, and that's actually pretty lightweight stuff. I mean, a 4x8 sheet you can pick up, no problem. But screwed to that building, they let that air blow through it and. I mean, like I say, this, for the size of that building, we feel that. It's not an overkill. It's not gonna be a gaudy looking thing, you know, that's sticking right out at you. And we're just hoping you kind of see it our way.
We've actually had a few people stop by already and ask because there's no sign up, because the other sign that TLS had up there has blown over.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
So, because of the wind. So we would like to get this up as soon as possible.
But I did drop them pictures off.
thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
All right.
You want yours? back
No,
that
no, you can keep them.
Okay.
Is there anyone that would like to speak for or against the application? I'm gonna ask a 3rd time. Is there anyone who would speak for or against the application? Hearing no one, it is now 6:44, so we will officially close the public hearing. And Phil, you do have a staff report on this one. Do you want to speak to the staff report?
Yes, Madam Chair and Commissioners, yeah, my staff report of March 14th details the sign request here by Glenn's Motor Coach Tour. And as Mr. Birch noted, he's requesting a sign that's 5 feet by 18 feet or 90 square feet. And what's allowed by code is 1 square foot for each foot of building facade. The building facade is 65 feet, therefore 65 square feet of sign is allowed on that building. You know, the comment is made, it's a good looking sign, it's not a big deal, it fits the wall, and that may all be true, but there are standards in the code, and the commission and the council are charged with applying that code, and this exceeds that. And in exceeding the code, a variance is required, and as I note in here and tell you almost every time, variances can be considered permission to break the rules. So there are rules in place, and the question is, well, why can't you meet our rules? Why can't you meet the code? And the criteria in the ordinance, which are very closely aligned with state statute on this. State statute does have provisions for how cities should handle variances. The first three, one says there are extraordinary conditions or circumstances such as irregularity, narrowness, or shallowness of the lot, or exceptional topographical or physical conditions which are peculiar to the property and do not apply to other lands. The second one, there are extraordinary conditions or circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner. And three, that the variance is necessary to overcome practical difficulties in complying with the zoning ordinance so that the property can be used in a reasonable manner not permitted by the ordinance. So those three alone, the requested sign simply doesn't meet them. There's nothing extraordinary about this property. It's a new building on a nice commercial property, and the standards and the formula comes up to 65 square feet. And in my report, you have the picture of the sign that Mr. Birch submitted, and then you have a picture that I created showing the sign, what it would look like meeting the ordinance of 65 square feet. It's smaller, but I would say not dramatically smaller. So really the question is, what are the extraordinary circumstances? What are the conditions on this property that prevent the applicant from meeting the code? And I would say there simply isn't. And I'm certainly sympathetic to the desire to have a sign that would advertise the business and be noticeable. But it does get back to what are the standards in the code. Is 1 foot per building facade length the appropriate number? Or should it be 2? Or should it be a half a foot? I don't know. But there is a bright line in the code. And if you think it should be different, you should change the code. And I would advise you not to recommend approving a variance here. So my analysis and my conclusions are in here, and I do recommend that you deny the variance with the 5 findings of fact that are in my report. But again, those criteria and says that the commission must find that those criteria are met, and I believe they simply aren't.
Thank you. I will read as well from the report that we did get from Phil. The recommendation that we received is that they recommend denial of the variance due to the sign area requested by Fred Birch of Glenn's Motor Coach Tours with the following findings of fact. Finding of fact for denial of variance 1, Glenn's Motor Coach Tours LLC is constructing a building in Orinoco at 1460 Cedar Center Avenue Southeast. The west facade of the building is 65 feet in length. Finding of fact 2, the city of Orinoco has adopted zoning code standards for signage in section 111 of the city code. Those standards include a provision allowing no more than 1 square foot of wall sign on a commercial building for every linear foot of building facade. Finding of fact 3, the Glenn's Motor Coach Tours building would be allowed a wall sign of 65 square feet in area. The applicant has requested a 90 square foot wall sign for the building. Finding of fact 4, the city has standards for considering variances to the code that refer to unique circumstances or conditions on the property that pose practical difficulties in meeting the code. There are no such unique circumstances on this property that would prevent the applicant from installing a sign that meets the code standards. And or finding a fact, item 5, the request does not meet the criteria in section 151.401 for granting a variance. So I'll bring it back to the commission up here. Would anyone like to make a recommendation so we have something for discussion? One way or the other, or is there any feedback or?
Were we, last month, I forget, was there a discussion on another commercial property that had a sign on it that was larger than what it's supposed to be? And if so, why did that one get approved? It can go either way, but if somebody else was able to do it, then,
That was Thompson's garage door.
and
And the variance was granted, and that was before my time on the council, so it might have been during your time.
it was during my time. I remember that one because he said that it was not fair that he had to use his own billboard out there when he could be renting the billboard if he could just put his own big sign up. So we said, okay. And I believe since then, he has never taken his name off of his billboard anyways. So not that that matters, but I notice that every time that I see it. So yeah, I guess for me, it would be what's fair for one should be fair for everyone. And I don't remember, that was quite a while ago. I don't remember exactly why that was approved. I mean, he certainly could have made a smaller sign there. He couldn't have certainly just used his billboard. I guess we'd have to dig and see, but I know if it was me that wanted the sign and I got to drive by and see what he has going on, I'd be a little upset that I don't get to have that when somebody else does.
Yeah, I would make a motion to approve the variance. Looking at the sign, it's got a black backdrop instead of a white that we were looking at before. With the white lettering. It seems to blend in very good with what the building is, the way it looks. I don't see it being lit, which you had confirmed, and that would be one thing that if it was neighbors or whatever, as you go along with having it lit at night. I would recommend that we go with the variance and let him have the larger sign.
And would you make those 2 items conditions that the sign remain unlit and that it is a dark background with white lettering?
We can do that, which is what the picture shows, yes.
Well, I mean, I have a question here, though. If we're trying to, if we want to start being consistent with enforcing our code, and this is what our code says, shouldn't we do what Phil says? If we want to approve this, change our code? Because otherwise, we are violating how you're supposed to do a variance. The variance says these conditions have to be met. And quite frankly, they're not met. I mean, I'm not saying I dislike the sign, but the conditions are not met. And so now, you know, if you want to get to the point where you are enforcing a code, then sometime you're gonna have to disappoint somebody.
I would agree
Or
with that, but
change the code.
I think that if it wasn't for the other place having their sign, then I'd be all on board with that's the rules, we gotta change the rules, but that's not the
How
case,
long
so.
ago was that?
I don't remember exactly,
I think-
what, 2-3 years
I
ago?
think it was about 3 years ago or more. But
Had to
I
have
can't
been more.
remember,
Because I wasn't on the commission.
yeah, and I can't remember on that if P and Z recommended not and council approved. I can't remember if that's what happened.
I'm pretty sure that for whatever reason, we approved, but without going back and being able to dig up the minutes, I wouldn't be 100% on that.
Yeah,
Again, at some point, though, if you're gonna
Right.
start enforcing the code,
Who's the
it's
person
not
that
like
gets-
it was a month ago. It's not like, there were 2 people here out of all of us that were here when that approval was done, so.
Yeah.
You know, I'm okay with changing the code if that's what we want to do to allow this, but it seems to me we can't keep saying on other people, we're gonna enforce the code because it's the code, and then,
Because we've already set precedents is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, that's,
Scott
if
saying-
it wasn't for that,
I
I would 100% be
Also
saying.
agree with what you're saying. At some point, we have to draw the line and say, okay, we gotta stop doing this, or we might as well not have code.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't want to be the person that was first in line to have us start doing it to them.
Right. And I will say on this one, there's not a huge difference in terms of square foot and really the proportion of it. If I look
It's
at.
9 inches taller and it
Yeah.
looks like 2 feet, 9 inches longer.
Okay, I mean, from a perspective of looking at what we have, it seems like there's not a whole lot of difference. There definitely is a difference. But I don't,
Yeah,
this is
the
a
other
hard.
thing too, you know, which brings it up is we are reviewing the code and everything that's going on right now, and it is being rewritten. You know, so to change a code between now and the time that we have the final draft or the first draft for WSB, you know, I don't think it's worth going in and revisiting the code that quick. I think as it comes along. I know that we made a variance also on the sign business here on the code.
Shad Tracy.
Yeah, on Shad Tracy that they wanted as well. And we made a variance on that one too, which was what, last year, I think, when we did that one.
I was on at that point.
Yeah, you know, so we've done a
I
couple of
forget
it.
what that one was.
Yeah, that was
I
on.
think it
the
was for one that was perpendicular to the building
For the sh-
instead of
Right.
flush
I
with the
think-
building.
Think what you're kind of saying to
But that was
summarize it is,
visibility.
in the short period of time, some of us have been on here, there have been a couple different ones that have already come, so we know our existing code has other issues that we're looking at overall.
Madam Chair, I just did a quick calculation. So the difference between the existing code of 1 foot for each foot of facade, if we went to 1.385 feet of sign per 1 foot of facade, that's exactly where we would be for the Glenn's Motor Coach sign. And as I look at this proportionally, it aesthetically and proportionally, it looks like it's a good size for a building. So maybe what we've been looking at in the past is actually a little bit small. And so I'm thinking that if we were to grant a variance today and, you know, and I'm open to hearing all of the discussion around it, but with an adjustment in our code, making it 1.385 feet, it literally comes out to 90.025 feet. So when you round it, it's 90 feet exactly. And I'm just thinking that that might be a step in the direction because we've just talked about several sign variances that we have granted at this point. And so I'm wondering if, you know, putting that on our priority list of code things that WSB is going to be working on with us, if that would be something that would be recommended at this point. And if that were the case, and this was roughly the calculation that we wanted to look at for
Mhm.
our new code, then we would actually be granting a variance that would be standard for everybody else per city code moving forward. So,
So if I recall the Shad Tracy one, though, they were allowed to put it on the side of the building, but we restricted the size.
But I think the size went up too. Maybe I was
they
wrong.
had two. I think one of
They
them was
wanted
on the
two,
side, and I think the other one was,
Projecting or
yeah.
protruding off the side of the building.
Yeah.
This one's flat.
Right, but I thought we rejected the size one. We can get on, can't we? Can somebody get on the web and
So
check? Should be in last year's minutes if we did it last year.
I would agree that we probably need to look at that, because when you look at that sign there from what he's got, not only does it not look too big, it looks, you know, if
It looks
anything, people are
proportional.
either the way it should be, and if you imagine much smaller than that, it's gonna be like, I have to make such a little sign for that big, huge building.
Well, and I think if you go with something that is that proportional, it does look right, but if you also go with it, it has to be on a dark background with white lettering and not lit. I think that kind of helps offset it from looking out of character with the rest of the area. And I am looking through minutes right now.
Madam Chair, if I may, while you're looking up other things, a couple of comments.
Yes, please.
Yeah, on the question of precedent, you know, this is something that every commission and council worries about. If the case you're considering is more than about a year old, kind of the practice is you don't need to worry about precedent. You can take a new set of conditions and a new application and consider it. If it's more than a year and you think this other sign was 3 or 4 years old, you could make a different decision today on that. Second, the variance really calls for you looking at every property uniquely and coming up with what are the circumstances on that one, on each property. You know, that's a consideration. You know, how is this similar or different from that other sign? And third, if you do go ahead with a recommendation for approval, I would recommend that you have findings, like I had findings for the recommendation of denial, and address the 6 criteria in the variance section of the code to make findings that it in fact meets those criteria.
Thank you. I am pulling up that section of the code as well right now here, so bear with me just a moment.
I'll make a comment here too. Initially, you know, looking at the renderings that we had in our packet. And my first thought was, wow, it really stands out. And I was thinking about all the different businesses that will be up in that area. And, you know, is this going to really not really fit in terms of all the other businesses that potentially be up there? You know, are we making a mistake if we pass this? But I will say, I appreciate seeing this, because that's far different than this. And this was a white background, and this aesthetically looks better, and proportionately looks better.
Well, and this is only a portion of the side of the building, as opposed to being able to see the entire side of the building.
Yeah.
So the proportion is more real just to the naked eye.
Cause and with that said, I mean, if I was a business owner up there, I would definitely I wouldn't want something gaudy next to my business that you know, I mean, all these businesses up there are new and they're putting a lot of money into it. We want to make sure they all look nice, and they're all kind of conforming.
We've got 2 sisters going in 2 lots down.
Right. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, and so they probably haven't gotten to the point that they're talking with us. I know that I haven't seen anything about signage from them.
And my other thought with that was thinking about this, and I can appreciate, what was here in the notes, I think it was in the email about being able to see it from Minnesota Avenue, you know, our
52.
corridor to the city and 52. Wanting to be recognized. And I think if we are going to do this, I think we definitely should do it with the note, you know, if we approve, to recommend is that we enter a note in the minutes. And it's kind of going back to what Phil said, that we recommend with future updates to the code. You know, so it's not looking like we are setting precedents or continuing that. I don't think this is.
I think the black background looks a whole lot better with the white letters from what it was originally. And I think it blends in because your trim is black anyway on the building and it's dark gray. You know, so.
Any other discussion? So if the motion on the floor right now is to approve. And it's to approve with the two conditions, one, a dark background with white lettering, and two, that it would be unlit. Do you want to discuss potentially some findings in fact that would support that would go with that motion?
Yeah, I don't have the code in front of me.
And Phil, I know we've got several sections of the code that are out there. Do you know the exact citation for which section of the code that is?
Yeah, it's 151.401. And it's in my report. I excerpted those conditions. They're right at the end.
I see it there, yeah.
Yep, so if you look at the bottom below the page where it's page 404 of Phil's report. The first part of the variance code is one, there are extraordinary conditions or circumstances such as irregularity, narrowness or shallowness of the lot, or exceptional topographical or physical conditions which are peculiar to the property and do not apply to other lands within the neighborhood or the same class of zoning district. The second one, the extraordinary conditions or circumstances are due to circumstances unique to the property not created by the landowner. 3, the variance is necessary to overcome practical difficulties in complying with the zoning ordinance so that the property can be used in a reasonable manner not permitted by the ordinance. 4, the variance will not be materially detrimental to the public welfare or materially injurious to other property in the area and will not alter the essential character of the locality. 5, the variance is in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the chapter. And 6, the terms of the variance are consistent with the comprehensive plan. So that's the part that Phil did put into his report.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, I'm looking at the building and you're dealing with, instead of the other part of the building, which would have been the larger part of the building, okay, would have had more than enough square footage to be able to fit in. And so this is on the width instead of the length of the building is one thing that I think could be taken into account off of that. Because if you look at the length, I don't know, length is what you know,
Up 200 feet.
you know, so, you could put, you know what I'm trying to say, from one side to the other. I think visibility is where you want to have it that way. And again, the uniqueness of the property by the landowner could be that you didn't have the building facing this way, you had the building facing the other way. I'm just trying to come up with some ideas here on the variances.
Lon, could I ask a question? I seem to remember that when you were in here last month, that one of the things that you stated is that you kind of changed the layout of the building because of how windy it is up on that hill. And so that would be something that would absolutely be something that is not due to any responsibility of the landowner.
It is really windy up there.
Yeah, that's unique to the property. This is in number 2. The extraordinary conditions or circumstances are due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner. And so the fact that it is as windy up there as it is, and you actually turned your building a quarter turn, correct?
Well, they had it facing west,
Mhm,
and that would have caused a tornado going through all of those bays
mhm,
if the doors were open.
mhm.
So even the general contractor that was working on it, he goes, thank God you switched this.
And I'll say, I vaguely remember that coming up in conversation with the Thompson building. It was because of the angle. They wanted bigger lettering because of the angle, with the cars going by on 52 and people actually being able to see it. And I think the issue was by the time people get to it, it's at the wrong angle and they're already by and they wouldn't be
Right.
able to see a sign. I remember that was part of it as well. And they just wanted it bigger so people, could.
Yeah, that does ring a bell.
Yeah,
And we're not expecting them to see it from 52. We just want them to see it from the road,
Right.
that
No.
one that just goes in front.
yeah, and their situation
Yeah.
was 52 and theirs wasn't immensely bigger than what the code was at the time either, I didn't think.
Madam Chair, if I may just interrupt for a minute. I'm participating in this meeting on my phone, which may lose power here in a few minutes. So if I did be with you, it's because my device is giving out on me. But continue, please.
Thanks, Phil.
Thanks.
So,
So I would say number 4. The variance will not materially
detrimental.
my
detrimental to
contacts are
the-
so dry.
Yeah,
Detrimental
to the
to
public.
the
well.
public welfare or materially injurious to other properties in the area and so on, I would say, it meets that.
Will not alter with the essence, character of the locality.
Mhm.
I think having the conditions of the dark background, white lettering and
Right.
unlit will help with that as well.
Yeah,
And the last one is the terms of the variance are consistent with the comprehensive plan. So if we were gonna go back through these and come up with wording for the first one, there are extraordinary conditions or circumstances such as irregularity, narrowness, or shallowness of the lot, or exceptional topographical or physical conditions which are peculiar to the property and do not apply to other lands within the neighborhood or the same class of zoning district. So there you're saying the extraordinary condition or circumstance would be the fact that it is situated in a way that the wind or the other ongoing is such that even it forced them having to reposition the building.
That or the fact that it's not on the larger part of the building, which is the front of the building.
that would allow a bigger sign.
That would allow for a bigger sign. This is gonna be put on the side, which is smaller than the facial part of the building.
Has had it
Yeah.
originally been able to be situated, it could have been on the
Could have been
bigger
a
side.
backside.
Yeah.
So because of the actual property itself and having to turn the building, it's now suddenly on the small end and we're seeing it here. Had it been on the other side, we would not have actually seen it as here.
Yeah, and the wind shear is beyond their
And
control.
the wind is a part of extraordinary conditions.
The second one we had was the extraordinary conditions or circumstances are due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner, so he did not create the wind shear.
Right.
The wind shear that caused both the sign placement and even the building placement to have to change. The third one, the variance is necessary to overcome practical difficulties in complying with the zoning ordinance so that the property can be used in a reasonable manner not permitted by the ordinance.
Again, it's from the front of the building to the side of the building. I don't, you know, those are. I look at it for square footage, why?
So it's,
So the original plan was for the front of the building, the broad side, to be now where the narrow side is.
Yes, yeah, it was supposed to be facing
Yeah,
the
the-
west.
Yeah, the
And
bays
when I
were
saw it
facing.
from CWS was the one that had it that way, and I'm like, oh gosh, no, that's not gonna work.
So the practical difficulty would be the wind inside
It
the
would-
bus bays.
Yes.
okay. The fourth one, the variance will not be materially detrimental to the public welfare or materially injurious to other property in the area and will not alter the essential character of the locality. So that one, we were going to rewrite it, the variance, I think, meets that.
Yeah, that,
So can we go back to 3?
Sure.
I'm sorry, I mean, what is the practical difficulty of having a smaller sign?
The practical difficulty of why the 200-foot side of the building
What's the
had to be
practical-
turned.
That's the practical, but what's the variance is because we want to change the size of the sign. So what's the practical difficulty of a smaller sign? I think that's what you have to address in your, why the
way that
variance is
building had to be
necessary.
angled because of the wind, it made them not be able to put the sign that they could have had on the big side.
Right?
This is gonna end up being opinion, one way or another.
No,
I
it's
think
not.
so.
No, it's not.
Okay.
Because,
My opinion is what I just said. Obviously, yours is not.
no, what I'm saying is I think you have to address in why you consider it's necessary. You have to address why the smaller size sign would be impractical. Not the twist of the building. The twist of the building is 1 and 2, okay? But what this is saying is that it's necessary to overcome a practical difficulty. The difficulty that the code is imposing on this is that the size of the sign must be smaller. It has nothing to do with the twist of the building. So,
Or you could look at it as my building could have a sign this big, but because of the way we see, that's my opinion,
okay,
and that's yours.
it could also be visibility to be able to read the sign. If it's smaller, you're not
It'd
gonna be
be-
able to
it'd be
read.
roughly 85% of the size.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So visibility.
Yeah, okay, if that's what you want to say, then that's what you have to say, not
Because-
that there's a twist of the
And that
building.
makes sense.
So, but yeah, visibility.
That
to be
there's
able
not a
to
twist.
read that.
Right, because I guess the argument would be if you look at the square footage of what it could be on the larger side. And then you compare it to what it is on the smaller side, you know, they're losing X%.
They're losing
Um,
66% of
yeah.
their sign size.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so,
No, they're
and,
losing 15%.
No, if you've got a 200-foot facade,
Oh,
then you've got 200 square foot of sign that's allowable.
okay,
And they've got 65 feet and that's only 1/3
okay.
of 200. Little less than 1/3.
So as originally planned, the larger side was going to be there.
right,
They would have been able to do that larger sign.
and it would have been more.
Because of the wind and this, everything else going on, they had to situate it and turn it. No longer being able to put the bigger sign up as planned. Sign got reduced in size. It still doesn't technically meet what we've got for code.
Except that would your garage doors have been on the longer side?
Depends on which way we would have put it. Whether
So
we
would you
drive
put
around
a
it or-
sign over, I mean, because the long side is all the big garage doors.
It is, but we could put it on the back side if we want to put a sign on the back side.
Okay. But it's the size that.
So is what you're saying then, Colleen, that the practical difficulty would be more about the visibility than about the,
That's the argument I think you have to make,
Yeah,
because it's about, because it has to do with,
and
Our
that fits
code is
into
on the side.
that part of it, so we could do it as visibility.
Because that would be a practical difficulty. Is that reasonable manner?
Mhm.
And Wendy, I see you've been scribbling over there a little bit. Have you been wordsmithing some of this as well?
I've just been writing down the rough thoughts that we've been
Yeah.
having. I'd be happy to wordsmith them with you if you
Sure.
desire that.
We can
So.
go through the recording.
Yep. I think that would be good. So I think 4, 5, and 6 pretty much go right along. So the first one, if we just to recap everything, the first one, the extraordinary condition or circumstances would be the irregularity, narrowness, or shallowness of the lot or exceptional topographical or physical conditions which are peculiar to the property. So the wind shear and do not apply to other lands within the neighborhood or the same class of zoning district. And I'm not sure what the rest of the neighborhood is there, but it's definitely, there was the wind shear up there to the point where they had to resituate the building itself. The second condition would be the extraordinary conditions or circumstances are due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner. I would say that is correct.
Mhm.
3, the variance is necessary to overcome practical difficulties in complying with the zoning ordinance so that the property can be used in a reasonable manner not permitted by the ordinance. And with the having to change everything, it's reasonable, then we had down to have to not be able to do the large sign had they had the building that way. It's been reduced, but it's still slightly over, you said by what percentage? 1.3.
15%, isn't that what you said, Colleen?
the 65 versus 90 square feet is a 15% reduction.
So it was 65, they're asking for 90. And had they been able to put one on the larger side, it was 200.
Which their 65-foot sign is approximately somewhere between 30 and 33% of the size of the sign they would have been allowed on the 200.
Without
Foot
having
side.
to even get a variance.
Right.
Mhm. Okay. 4, the variance will not be materially detrimental to the public welfare or materially injurious to other property in the area and will not alter the essential character of the locality. So that one sounds fine. 5, the variance is in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the chapter. And 6, the term of the variance are consistent with the comprehensive plan. So I think 1, anybody have issues on the wind shear and the reasoning there?
No.
2, again, the extraordinary circumstance or condition, it's unique to the property, not created by the landowner, so everyone agrees the wind shear is not created by the landowner.
Correct.
3, the reasonable. And that is the one where it is, how did we come up with that? The reasonable to be able to. Reasonable.
Visibility off of that one.
Okay, visibility is reasonable to have overcoming practical difficulties and complying with reasonable for the visibility.
Right.
And that currently would not be permitted because it's the small end and not the large side.
Right.
And then 4, 5, and 6 are pretty much as written there. Okay, so Jim, so we've got, you had your motion to approve with the 2 conditions.
Mhm.
Were you wanting to include the 6 findings of fact then,
Yes,
as roughly drafted over here in our discussion?
Yes.
And so you had approved it, you had, second came from,
I'll second. I don't think we had a second yet.
yeah, I don't know if you did either.
We didn't. Go ahead. Yep.
And so we're good with all of that there. Any more discussion? We have a motion on the floor, first and second. All in favor of approving and sending this as a recommendation to city council with those findings in fact and those two additional conditions?
Aye.
Say aye.
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 All opposed?
Nay.
Okay, motion passes. We will send that to city council, and that would be on their agenda for next Tuesday's meeting.
Great, thank you.
Yep. And we did not have new business that got added to the agenda. We're gonna take a 5-minute break here. And we are going to, next will be our update on the Hamilton Group presentation, their general development plan, but we're gonna take 5 minutes and give them a moment to set up. Maybe if anybody wants to stretch their legs, they're more than welcome.
Do you want to leave this stuff together? So on the first one, it was
Is that one of the
because of
painters or racers?
that
One
they
of the
had
same,
to
I
turn
believe.
the.
Oh, are they the same?
Yeah.
No, I am
And
not.
they lost the
Not that I'm aware
side
of.
to
I think it
the
looks a whole lot better in the
second
second.
one. Second one was just.
No, I mean, for quite a while.
Yeah, because it was-
2005.
No, but it's
Well, you.
the other one. it makes more
Done here.
Okay.
That's
Very good.
Oh,
My
okay.
wife is really.
the other
thing.
Oh, okay.
I will say. So you must be in that Center Street here.
Yeah, yeah, up on the hill.
You take that down to the end that they had to hang a right her family.
Oh, okay. So it's that one.
Understand.
When it's a big white farm.
Yeah.
You go all the way to the T.
T, hang a right.
Oh, hang a right, and then it's on the left. Oh, yep, yep. Used to run out there when I had more energy.
Sure. A younger body.
Uh-huh, yep.
They'll get by, you only can see it from one direction, and by the time people get by, the size and they show it.
Yeah, it's pretty nice out there.
It is nice over there.
Yeah.
I said, you're.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty cool. What do you think?
Can I steal that picture that's over there?
Yeah.
Trying to absorb
Make sure we turn that into the city.
Yeah, usually, usually they're not.
Looking at this and you're into it is kind of.
Yeah, because that picture.
What makes sense with.
Then this one.
I mean, I think the sign looks good.
This does not give you.
Yeah, I was not for it. I will tell you, so I think we need to know, because we're saying
And they're
we wanna
actually
update
banners.
the code.
Instead of dropping
I think
like
we
that,
need to
they're
keep
not
note that, okay, we did
Metal
that,
signs.
we need to update the code with it.
1.5
Yeah.
is 1.385.
No, I understand. I was just trying to
They-
find
they
the number
fix
that
that
was
growth.
specific to that. Yeah, so I'm not suggesting that we do
It's
anything
really.
like that, but I'm thinking that it's proportional.
Oh, yeah, I know.
I'm
Oh,
thinking
yeah,
that if
those
it's
are-
somewhere between 1.3 and 1.4,
And who's
that
actually-
proportionally, that looks good.
To capture the north.
Yeah.
Just to give it
sign.
Well, I've
Just to
got
round it
one
up to the closest, yeah.
I do have a note, we'll talk about it when we get
And
to
I'm not
the
sure.
WSB, but I'll
Because we
spend
don't
for you.
want to make the standard
Bottom.
looking
Right to the-
kind of large on every building. We want it to be,
Right.
we want it to look tasteful, right?
Well, and I was looking at, do you have this picture?
Can you see it for a second, Kathy? Thanks.
We do have some paper copies. See, that's really just pretty that he was.
Say
Is really not.
roughly
Yeah,
here.
she's gonna,
That's where.
we need a copy of it to send her.
Okay. If you count out, there's like 9
I'm
this
not
way,
familiar with
9
I
that
think
way.
that's a little bit color.
So it would be
Locking into that.
And that
And that makes.
It's really.
And you know what is pretty.
Precise. The
Kathy
65%.
with everything.
Yeah, and,
That's what I'm saying.
and I wish that we could have put this side by side with the entire building showing that would have been telling.
I mean,
And if one of the conditions was, then they would say, oh, so that's.
Yeah.
If it wasn't, they can vote.
Yeah.
You know,
That's why you gotta write
Honestly,
stuff down.
because I can't see both ends of it. I look at this and go, I can't. So,
And they got a very, this
Kind of
again,
walking
we
the
do
line
that.
here.
I-
It was faded,
Green,
and
yeah,
everything
stuff
that
against
is-
too.
But that's not always clear either. And so, I mean, I had all sorts of thoughts going through my head. Right, but I'm not sure I was supposed to share all of them.
Change.
Yeah. And so that's the difference between what they were allowed and what they asked for is this number. But if we were to go to like a 1.4 or something increase, you know, I agree with Colleen to go with the, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm right.
Three.
And I agree with Colleen too. It's a slippery slope when you start doing it.
It is, absolutely.
But I've got and I'll talk about when we get to WSB, all the stuff I gave a large list of, here's all the stuff we already have identified, and signage is already. Up to that, no, it'd be like 1 point.
Yeah, because he said.
Yeah, 1.4 or 5 inches.
Yeah, yeah, that out of
Would
the.
be just over.
Supposed to have a term.
Yeah, that's.
Okay. Yeah, if we've got 12 inches. Yeah.
What you just had, well,
This is where it doesn't really say this or that, and that's what we're trying.
Yeah.
Just not looking
Per
at
foot
it.
of-
Other variations that are going on now, and that's what you.
We got stuff set up, how you guys need it set up.
There's no variance, that's not quite
I
right.
am gonna click that button that says X.
To bring it to
See if we can get
planning
that
and zoning,
closed.
Yeah, you'd be essentially the name of the business.
Right.
That was a good conversation.
Read those minutes.
All right, folks, are you guys ready to circle and jump back in?
Sure.
Okay, you guys are ready out here?
I think so.
Excellent, excellent. All right, well, welcome back to zoning. We are here now talking about, next on our agenda, the Hamilton Group presentation, their general development plan. This is just a update or conversation. We don't actually have an application or a public hearing or anything actually scheduled at this point. It's some information they've given us, and we're happy to take a look at what they are thinking, scratching their heads and looking at right now. And if, I'm not sure who was going to speak, if you want to stand and introduce yourself to the group here, and we are all open to listening.
Yeah, Madam Chair, members of the commission, for the record, I'm Bill Twain with WC Consultants. I've been working with the Hamilton Group, and in particular Ari Colas and Jamie Shanley, who are with me this evening, on producing a general development plan for the mixed residential commercial development on approximately 47 acres that you can see outlined in blue on the slide, on both screens here. Located in the, what we call the Cedar Woodland residue. So to the east is the Cedar Woodland development that got started years ago that I did for a different developer. And now we have this residue land available for development with municipal services. Water is there, and we would have to get the sewer extended to the site. So the first slide is just a vicinity map, and I think what's important to note about this is almost really classified as an infill development when you have all the residential to the north, to the east. You have some non-residential to the west. On the south, what's kind of important to point out, I'll see if I can do this with this little laser. When you look at the piece, and you hit it there, but right on the south, that blue line,
Right here?
right there, yeah. So there you have two sisters is being located on a parcel to the left.
Right there.
Yep, and then you have a
Yep.
commercially zoned piece of property that's sort of long and narrow. And then if you go to the east, that's all R2 zoning right now.
And that's this section here,
No,
Go down,
down here.
right, yep,
right, just look to the left,
yep, there you go.
right there.
Yeah, so that's all R2 and commercial combined. So basically, we do adjoin mostly residential, but we do have some non-residential land around this site. So, you might ask, why are we here this evening? I think it's a good question. And we're here to review a general development plan, even though you don't have a formal process to follow in your code for a general development plan, but in meetings that we've had with city staff, including Mr. Carlson from Stantec City Planner, was highly recommended that we come forward with a development plan for the entire site to be completely transparent to the public and the city of Orinoco as what the intentions for the development are on the site. If I could have the next slide, please. So this is the land use plan that you currently have, and we reviewed this on November 9th at this planning commission meeting as informal introduction to the project. And what we have here is really, you can see the elongated red area. I'll see if I can do this again. You can, I don't know why this is not working very well. Right there you go. The cursor is great. And so we have the commercial zone land use to the westerly side of the site, which is obviously adjoins other commercial you already have there along Second and Minnesota Avenue. And then the orangish colored is your medium density, or what you call a zoning of R2, but it's a medium density designation. The balance of site in the yellow is the low density residential over to the existing Cedar Woodlands to the east there. Yep, very good. That's good. We did have this meeting with the staff on January 4th. After our November 9th meeting in 2023, we heard some feedback from this commission. Those of you that were here, that there wasn't much support for what we really truly call medium density apartment style development in this particular area. So we have removed that from the plan, which I'll show you in a minute. We don't have any of that anymore. It's going to basically be the low density quads, townhomes, and single family lots, along with a little bit of commercial on the west. So I have the next slide there. So this is the new general development plan. For those of you that might remember, on the left side or the west side, those are apartments in there. We no longer have that. We've added some more townhomes and a few more quads in there. So the mix is a little different now. And if you're into statistics, the low density residential proportion based on number of units is 40%. The townhomes is 26%. And the quads are 33 and a little bit left over for the commercial, making 100% there. So that was something it's important to us to look at. And so if you follow from west, the left side of the screen is west to east. You have the higher intensity uses adjacent to the commercial on the west side. And then as you move to the central part of the site, you have some low density residential lots. And if you move to the far east, where you see the bigger squares in there, we purposely made the lots along that road close to the size of the lots that are in the Cedar Woodlands existing to the east right now. Basically because of the sensitivity of the land use and how these people have built their homes and their values and their lot sizes. So I'll get into the sizes in just a minute, but that's how we progressed land use wise, higher intensity, lower intensity, lowest intensity. And then to the north, we also have some larger lot, single family against River Park. So if you're familiar with River Park, they are a larger lot, single family development. What we were hoping for tonight is to get a consensus or at least acceptance of the general development plan in principle and send that recommendation to the city council along with any suggestions or comments that you have. And I forgot to ask you if you wanted to take questions as we go along, or you'd rather have me complete it and then have questions. Does it matter? Which,
I think you'd go through it.
okay. So that's what we're hoping for. We know that this is not a formal application, but we don't, our client doesn't want to get me engaged in doing a preliminary plat and construction plans for a lot of money and then come here and say, you guys say, oh geez, I wish you'd change this plat. That's what we're trying to prevent here and be completely transparent about what we're going to do here. So the, again, on this slide, you can see that we have two stormwater plans proposed, one on the northeast, one on the southwest. One over by Second Avenue, we can access that from Second Avenue, it needs to be maintained. If you look at the cul-de-sac, you'll notice there's a diagonal line from southwest to northeast over to the right. There you go. That'll be a access road that gets down to be able to monitor and clean out that stormwater basin. Those are crucial in case they should silt in the future. We have access to them. And there's a trail right now, if you come from the actual Cedar Woodlands on the east and go down the end of the cul-de-sac and so where that straight, a black line is going left and right. Yeah, there are north and south and then left and right. There's already a trail there. So we are proposing also, if you can see over to the left, back on the west side of the cul-de-sac, we have a trail system that we're bringing through. Right there.
Up above there.
Up on top.
It's the gray
Yeah.
line that's dotted.
So that's also shows on your land use plan, so we're trying to be compliant with what you have set aside on your land use. All the streets are public, they're gonna be constructed to public standards. And then we do have an outlet, if you see it just below the blue, there you go, that outlet A at this point is being left as open space. It's gonna be maintaining the preservation of the existing woodland area in that vicinity. It has some steep characteristics to the topography, so it is difficult to develop, but it's acting as a buffer against any of the larger lot stuff to the east there. So we haven't worked out the details about ownership and long-term maintenance. That'll be a part of the development agreement, which we have to do in the future. So I guess one thing on the next slide, please. So we put together, I can read this okay, we put together a chart. We wanted to let you know where we stand with lot sizes, both square footage and frontages and depth. So if you look at the larger lots I mentioned earlier on the easterly side of the site, range from 34,580 square feet to 44,220. 150-foot frontages to 215, and then we have depths of 240. So definitely they're our largest lots. In that central portion where we have the single-family homes, we have lots that range from 9,000 to 11. We have 74 feet to 80 feet frontage, and the key issue here is that with 74 feet, we can put 3-car garages on those lots and meet your side yard setbacks. So believe it or not, 3-car garages is becoming the most popular thing that we've dealt with in single-family housing development. So we are providing for that, which makes a really nice setup for everybody. Keeps those vehicles in the garages if they want. And then we go to the other part of the central area. We downsize the lots a little bit because not everybody's gonna want to build, a $500,000 house. So we're down to, 7,000 to 8,000 square feet, 60-foot frontage, 120-foot deep. We've still got a really nice house in here. I've been in this business 55 years. And we've done a lot of 60 by 120-foot residential houses that are very accommodating, 2-car garage attached. And we can do that, but I didn't think everybody wanted to buy the 3-car garage lots, they can buy the 2-car garage lot. And then on the northern side, up towards River Park, we have, again, some larger lots, 16,000, 26,000, 76 to 100 feet. And they're on a curve, so that 76 is at the street line, but when you get back to the building line, they're wider than that. I should have mentioned that at all of these lots. They're gonna pan out and do better than that. So that's the lot sizes, and then the next slide is our zoning. So today, this is what we'd look at if we looked at the future of our general development plan. So the commercial on the left again matches up with, in red, matches up with the land use plan. The orange matches up, west of that north-south road, lines up with what's on your land use plan. So we would ask for a little bit more orange, to put townhomes in, between those two streets that you see there. And then the rest of it is primarily all gonna stay, low density R1, say. And give them a wide variety of, housing styles, based on lot sizes here.
You're talking right here?
No, over on the other side.
To the right side of the road there, just to your right where you're pointing, I'm sorry.
Yeah, on the bottom, the bottom.
This section
those.
one,
Yeah,
yes.
that's,
No, the bottom, they're up on top and the bottom, those, and then the bottom ones,
The orange.
which were different than what you had
they're
before.
different than- yes.
Okay.
And again, we removed the apartment style living, got all to ownership style living here on the site. We do have a phasing plan. That's the next slide. Little hard to see, but there's a yellow line on the left side that would be phase one, so you can see phase one, there you go, that's very good, and, oh, no, that'd be, yeah, that's part, I'm sorry, yeah, good. So that's phase one, and then the blue on the right-hand side would be phase two. And that cul-de-sac is the last phase, phase three. So we thought, and the cul-de-sac area is a little more difficult to develop in that area. We thought we'd leave that to last and get some starts on the west side first. So that's our phasing plan. And I know that, you know, our developers are high on Orinoco. They really like the city of Orinoco. They know that there's not an inventory of lots for different housing products such as the quads or the townhomes or the single family. So they really want to get going on this, and we're looking at trying to get the first phase, the one in yellow, ready for a start late fall with construction and may carry into next year, 2025. The future phases, the other two, it's really hard to predict until they get this first phase going. I mean, we have no idea what the demand is going to be. We have a feeling there's a pent-up demand. We get calls quite often, people wanted to say, do you have any land in Orinoco, any lots are available? We don't have any. There may be some out there, but the people I represent don't have anything out here in Orinoco. So I think this will add a lot of people just like yourself to Orinoco and help with hooking up to sewer and getting the sewage plant paid for and, you know, we're gonna follow all the rules that you have as far as the process goes, and that leads me to my last slide. So we're at number one right now, and you can see to develop the preliminary plat, we're gonna need a variance for some of the lot sizes. We have construction plans, we have a zone change to do, we have a development agreement to go through, we have a final plat, and then we can get to construction. So you're going to, as a commission, will see this preliminary plat, you'll see the construction plans. The development agreement, I think, goes directly to the council, if I'm not mistaken. The development agreement.
Yes, we'd like to initiate that as soon as possible.
And then you have, I'll look at the final plat again when it comes through. So you have many more opportunities to look at this. I took a long time here to stumble through this thing, but I wanted to get it out and let you know we're completely transparent what we're doing.
I think you guys have been very, very good on bringing it up and giving us a chance to take a look at it and discuss it till it got to this point of what's going on. Now, as far as the second phase that you have, that there is that going to be the same developer that's going to be involved with the second phase, or?
That's the plan. Yeah,
That's
they
the
own,
plan.
they own the whole land, all the land, so
Okay.
they're in the game till the end here.
And you have no idea as to when phase two and phase three would be built?
It would depend on the demand for the lots in the first phase. You know, well, I tell you, my experience has been, I can't speak for Ari or Jamie, but my experience has been when a developer gets about 2/3 of the lots sold in one phase, they go to the next phase. That's approximately, that's a rough idea of what I've experienced over the 50-some years of the business. Not to say that, for example, if they depleted their single-family detached housing lots in the first phase, they could jump over to that part of that second phase to add more of those. So that could be accelerated.
Yeah, because I'm thinking there's such a big difference between the phases in what it is that you're building between 1 and 2 or 1 and 3.
Yes.
That I could see that it would be very difficult to predict. Building something that has not yet been built in Orinoco, you don't know what the demand is going to be. And because it is the fourplexes and the duplexes that we're talking about, people that are going to have accessibility, you know, an ease of accessibility to their work, to grocery stores, to other amenities that would be around. And so I'm just I'm just wondering how quickly those would sell myself, because we don't have those things yet in our city.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
The one thing I will tell you is that we're flexible in the phasing limits. I mean, we're showing you what we think might be the phases. But I know, Ari, speak up. I think we're at this point, it's the best we can
Well,
do.
I'd make a comment that interestingly, because we've been talking to residential real estate agents who we are talking to about marketing for us and builders. To date, there is by far the most interest in the fourplex product because it's different and they say, they feel like there will be significant demand for it, so.
Are these people that are probably going to be purchasing for the purpose of renting then?
No, I don't think so. The builders that we've talked to who have built product like this have built them as for sale products.
So they'd be almost like a 4-unit townhouse type thing?
Correct.
So we built, so I worked for a developer that did some of these in Casa, Minnesota. And they were sold out the first year. And they built 16 units. So, yeah, all owner occupied.
So what we're looking, when we're looking at the plan up here is owner occupied everything, unless somebody on a one-off purchases something and decides to do as a rental. None of these would be like a 4-unit rental building.
That's not the vision at this point. Could that happen? Potentially. I mean, markets change. It's hard to, but we're not, at least from what we're hearing from the marketing people who are working in the residential sales market at this point, they feel that there is a demand. You know, a 4-unit building, it's still hard to get, to probably build a unit that's, it's probably gonna be a little over $300,000 even as a fourplex. You know, it's over a, you know, $1.2 million commitment to build one of those buildings in today's market, which is hard to believe, but. You know, we think in the phasing there that we've got a little of every product there we brought in on the north side, some of the bigger, that we think will be some of the more desirable single family lots there.
Can you point out the outlot A where the current septic is?
Yes.
The very top, that's right, yeah.
Yeah,
At the very
so-
top, right?
And I'm asking that so everyone
You can
here
just barely see the line.
understands.
What are those?
That's the outlot drain field. That is the drain field for Cedar Woodlands 2. There's about 12 homes. So, Cedar Woodlands 2 will be connected very soon, days, maybe this week. So the process is that the bonding bill money will come in and decommission that drain field. And after it's, so it's owned by the city. So what we will do, we will hire a private appraiser to appraise the value of that land. And then whatever that market value is, that's what will be negotiated with Hamilton for the purchase of that drain field. It comes down here and then it goes along this path here too. There's the lift station. There's a small lift station here. It's called 1B. And there'll be a new lift station there. It is there now. So everything drains the lift station, comes up the hill, and then connects to Timberline and goes down to lift station 1, so.
So the part is that all of the orange that the city currently has as a drain field?
No,
Or
it's
no,
just a
just-
narrow sliver. It's like a
Just a small.
50, 60 feet wide. It's kind of, you can barely see a line through there.
Okay.
I think on the first slide I had, it shows that. Go back to the first
Just to
slide.
make sure I'm following.
Just go back to this, a little more, one more back, a couple more back.
The actual site plan.
There it is.
Well, one more.
Mark?
Oh, that
There you go. There
narrow.
it is, yeah.
So this little finger of land.
Yeah, right now that belongs to Cedar Woodlands 2 HOA. And that's what will be turned over to the city with their further agreement with the city.
So
So then the council would have to approve the
sale.
sale of
Come
it.
to the council for review and setting, yeah. If I may just make a couple more comments too. The security agreement has been completed. Excuse me. So the security agreement has been worked out between the city and Hamilton to cover all the engineering expenses. Once you give it to Phil, all of his covers, all of his costs were part of that security agreement.
And that's not in tonight's packet, though.
No, it's just a separate document. We
Haven't
worked
seen
it out within less than a week, I think, so it was pretty quick. Yeah. So we have the funds, we have the signed agreement, so that's good to go to take care of Joe's engineering when the preliminary plat comes in. It'll take care of Phil's response to you back in May or whenever it comes back to PNC, so.
Are all the different units that are,
Comment to it.
yeah,
I think the phasing is important and Jamie Redford said, I think how fast these sell and the popularity. If we look at these here and maybe that point in time, these could become single family too, if that's what the market demands, more single family, or we can keep the twin home, but that's the flexibility I think that
Yes.
they bring in this development, which is kind of
Has a
unique.
very similar feel to like Badger Hills or Badger Ridge, where they have the fourplexes and then the twin homes, and then it goes into a subdivision. It's
We
very
developed
nice.
that area.
Yeah, I knew you did actually.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know.
Oh, that was yours, huh?
But it's, yeah, I like how that lays out. At the moment, potentially are the fourplexes and the twin homes both slab on grade? Is that what the thought is, or?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's becoming a very popular.
it is. And a lot of the surrounding communities, the twin homes, at slab on grades are selling rather quick. You know, so that's, a lot of people want to retire and move to a smaller community. I know you brought up, having grocery stores and stuff is nice if people want those amenities. Well, this may bring some of those things down the road. Pineland is still very close. Rochester's still coming this direction.
it's a different market too now when you do have options to have groceries delivered.
Yes,
So,
correct.
Yeah.
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 So to tell you how far back I go, I lived 3/4 of a mile down the road with my uncle and my aunt. So I grew up on a farm.
Okay.
We used to go to Eckerman's feed mill, which is now Shad Tracy here.
Sure. Yeah.
And then we had the Cowden's grocery store. We had Luban's garage across the road here, so
Yeah.
it's kind of old time for me. I mean, I'm glad to see that you're making progress with the sewer and water supply here and get some more development, get some more people in here.
And this was probably still a school, right?
I think the buffer is really nice from the existing subdivision into it.
Yeah.
And it lays out well that way.
I think you guys did a really good job listening to what we were saying and coming up with this. I think it's very good.
And looking at this, I don't know that I see any of this that would be I think the fear of some folks where you'd have house next to another house and you can stand between the two and touch them both. It
Right.
doesn't look like any of those are necessarily gonna be situated that close, so.
And the fact that there's some nice,
Other than the
Bigger.
duplexes that purposely touch each other,
Yeah.
you know, that. Yeah.
there's definitely nice lots.
I think it's given the options too of what's out there in the market. And I know there's probably a lot of people would like to get out of Rochester and come into a community like this, and affordability with, you know, those type of options is, I think, very, very good, you know, so.
You're not really far away from the employment center if you worked in Rochester, or if you want to go north, the Cannon Falls and the cities, you jump on the highway and they're
And the
20 minutes
schools
closer.
are good too with Pine Island, which is a big selling point that there is of being here in Orinoco, is having those options of what's going on. So younger families are looking for that, you know, to have that ability to do that, you know, so, and be able to be affordable.
Well, again, just in summary, you know, we were hoping that we would get some sort of responsive acceptance of the plan, and if you have any comments to add with that, we appreciate those, and I assume, Mayor, that this would go to the council on Tuesday, would we be able to present?
Well, the timing is bad with this time of month because we are packet went out yesterday.
Oh, too.
So I think the PNC may want to get some feedback from Phil too. I don't know if that's your plan or not, but
So I think that as far as I'm concerned, you've got my vote of what there is in the direction, and everything moving ahead. And I think you guys have done a very good job by bringing it back here to us and explaining the changes as we go along. So we're very much aware. So go ahead.
No, I was gonna ask Bill, can you explain a little bit just for them and hopefully our goals of moving this quickly ahead as we've discussed in the past meetings? Because we do want to accelerate this and work through your variance process and things like that, so your cooperation is important to us to make sure we're hitting the deadlines and Bill has time to do his work. I'd like to.
Let me also make a comment too, and Ryland too with that, if it ends up being that this is something that we need to move ahead, instead of letting 30 days go by, we can always put a special meeting together and be able to hit it that way, to be able to move and keep it in your time frame as well.
So do we need, I don't see anything in here from Bill, you know, like he normally,
No, because it hasn't been presented to him yet. I don't
oh, it
think.
has.
The only time we reviewed this with Phil was January 4th.
Oh, okay.
And-
Okay.
Well, January 4th, we had Phil on the line, we reviewed the.
Right, this is what was requested.
Yep, this is exactly what we had when we.
Okay.
And
Yeah, so,
So we,
but I'm just saying there's other options that there are with that, so it doesn't put you guys behind by another 30 days of what you want to do if we need to do that.
And Jim, I do like that idea of potentially throwing in an extra meeting there. I know we do, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit. When we hop down to the WSB update later, they are talking about putting together a larger meeting or group, but it's possible we could also throw a short zoning meeting on that same night
Mhm.
to address this issue.
Yeah.
Cause we're looking the probably second week of May.
You know, something like that, which would be quick enough for you guys that will be moving
Things
ahead.
moving.
yeah, so we'd need Phil, he presented to Phil, Phil give us his recommendations, his thoughts on it, and then we would have to make a recommendation to the
And
council.
Dora, if that doesn't work out time frame, we can look at other dates and times too, so.
But I know where you're looking at and.
Cause I'm certainly open to calling another meeting to
I
get
am.
this,
Oh,
keep it moving
absolutely.
forward, because I do know there is. I get questions occasionally out of the blue of, you know, what is there out there? So I do know I could probably draw you a list of names of folks that are interested in some of these options, and we have a great number of homes that fit that single family household, but we don't have a lot of some of the seniors that want to get into some type of unit that might be all on one level and have services available. And or young adults and other families that are out there. So the single family with kids, we do pretty good in the community on hitting that target, but
Jason isn't here now, but in the hallway, he told us there's no lots from.
He's back there.
Oh, sorry.
everybody's
Yeah,
kind of waiting for some septic and for us to get our code done, and that's one of the things we're trying to do is get our code pushed forward and updated so that people can start doing lot splits easier, so we don't spend the next 3 years doing lot splits, multiple lot splits every single meeting as a.
So are you thinking, I mean, we brought this forward without, I don't think, a formal requirement for a general development plan approval by you. But, you know, we're trying to get from you a read that makes us comfortable moving forward. For us to have to come back to you in another month and then get on the council after that is kind of.
I think at this point, some of the concerns I've heard prior meetings when we had a room full of other neighbors and potential neighbors, future neighbors. Larger, taller, multi-story buildings that we know we can't currently service with emergency vehicles, anything taller than 2 stories, because we don't have a ladder truck. So looking at these, I'm guessing we're looking at 2 stories or less. I think one of the other concerns I had heard were the width in some of the smaller areas of these driveways. They're labeled driveways, not public roads, and making sure that you can get larger vehicles in there in an emergency, that if there's a fire, if there's a need for a larger vehicle to get in there in an emergency situation.
We did move that North Street, so that helps.
Yep, I did see that too, because the first one or one of the prior ones, it ended here and now there's a drive-through.
Usually the rule is 150 feet street with a fire truck, you can back out. And that's kind of what we did with the other 2 roads, we made them like that, so.
And I think one of the other concerns I had heard previously when we had potential future neighbors that had come in from some of the other areas were the lot sizes and having this buffer, the larger lots, and making sure that if that doesn't get developed right away, that those lot sizes still are solid and
Remain.
maintained as larger lots. And if we don't have a sudden popularity here, that this doesn't suddenly map across and we have a bunch of, instead of that buffer.
Right.
So I-
Instead of the graduated lot.
Yeah, so having that buffer and working its way gradually, I think that was one of the concerns of the neighbors is that the development order, and if we don't have a lot of control on the development order, but have a way to really cement in as much as we can what we're seeing here for the lot size on that buffer side, to make sure that they are maintained as larger lots and
Yeah. And
not that I think we'll see a 10-story apartment building suddenly popping up there or anything,
Right.
but
Right, I think that having it that way is gonna be good for the current residents that are over there and visually it will look really good, so.
mhm.
And I think you guys did a good job addressing the concerns
Mhm.
from
I
that,
think you really did.
from that initial meeting. And, you know, even though we can't make a motion on it tonight, I like what you guys have
I
presented.
mean,
I think.
yeah, you've got our vote that
You're
there
listening
is.
and responding to what the neighbors are saying,
Our
really.
biggest concern is we are gonna have to do variances, at least for the first phase and things like
A
that.
little bit of.
So for some of that, so that will take a little time and things like that. So I think that's where my concern is, just because I do know how things work.
We
and
may end up
it's,
doing variance hearings at the same time we're doing some other code revision hearings as we're putting in chunks of code, I
And
hope.
I'm hoping Bill and you and Jason, we can work together to be as efficient as possible.
Right.
So we can get going.
And you're looking at a small amount of zoning change, right?
Yeah.
From R
Yeah.
one to R.
Exactly, so. it
Yeah, if you
requires-
back up to the one that had the zones
Yeah,
on
it's
there that
just
you were
those
looking at,
couple ones,
and then
right?
you look at the map down below here.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
So,
All that takes a little time, and that's
Yeah.
why in my brain, and again, I'm the rosy-eyed guy in the room here. I wanna be done in 3 years. You asked how long. If this thing is still going in 3 years, that's a failure in my mind. So I wanna keep things moving, so the faster we get
I think
going.
the demand is there and just ready right now, and as people have been wanting to come out here, it's just been restricted on
Right.
what's been available.
I would almost feel
In the fall.
I'd almost feel that your, phase two would sell out a lot faster than phase one, just because that's
I
really
was
what people
gonna
are
think of
looking
the same
for.
thing.
Except we can't, we have to.
Correct. No, I understand why, but yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
we've had that.
I think
you
you're
know,
gonna have demand on all of them.
Yeah, I do too.
My
Yeah.
read on it, so. There's just not a lot of buildable lots out anywhere right now,
We
and
appreciate your support and your optimism. I love
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's kind of amazing. Maxfield Research did a study in 2020 about needs for housing, all kinds of housing. And they did the Rochester, the greater Rochester area. And from 2020, they did it in 2022. And they predicted from 2025 to 2030, they need 14,700 plus residential units of some mix or another. Some of that was multifamily, a lot of it was single family. And that was before Mayo announced Unbound, their $5 billion plan. And I know Mayo doesn't build buildings to leave them vacant, so once they get done with their 5-year plan to build out on it, Unbound, that employment base is going to increase significantly. And I would think some people would like to move here. It's a nice community.
They take the wrecking ball to one of the buildings next month.
so we should be able to handle a proposal for a zoning change and variances next month. I mean, you said the 8th is when, I think.
I think that's the date that, and I'll look. at my notes
Proposing,
and
but
look
the
into-
9th is really, I think.
I think
next
it's our
zone.
regular zoning.
Yeah, the 9th is
So
the
it-
regular zoning and the 8th is what was proposed
Oh,
for
there we
the,
go. I think the original
Discussion.
email had some April dates that didn't seem to work out for folks.
Ninth, that was in there, yeah.
But yeah, I think,
that's-
I think I agree with you that there's not necessarily a formal vote, but there certainly is,
24 hours in the day.
I think solid. I think there's not a formal vote, but I think there's a consensus just in the discussion that this is the
Yeah,
direction.
we're there, yeah.
I think as a consultant, not the landowner, I'm comfortable getting started on the preliminary plat process, zone change.
Yeah.
I have to
But
get my clients to agree, but I think we are pretty safe in getting started on this thing, so. I feel really good about it. And thank you for your time, by the way.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
You guys have done an
Thank
awesome
you for
job all
doing
the way
this.
through. Thank you.
We appreciate that so much.
Thank you. Thanks for your input and,
yeah.
We'll see you
we'll see you
again.
soon.
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Ari.
Thanks for all your time.
Thank you guys, of course, thank you.
Thank you, Bill. And sir, I haven't met you yet, I don't think.
I'm Ryan.
Ryan,
Well, yep.
thank you, Ryan.
Of course. Ryan, the owner, does most of the work, still gets it work.
Appreciate you stopping.
That's all I do here.
Thursday nights in Orinoco, very exciting around here, so, yeah.
Well, I'm one of the prospective, residents who are a young guy. I live in Zumbrota, so, and work in Rochester, this would be perfect for me. Always looking.
There you go.
There's a number
Very
of
good.
folks that are kind of in your same boat that are on our
Thank you.
first responders and
Thank
fire
you so much for
department too,
coming
so.
in tonight.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Iris.
All right. Well, that was a good conversation. Nice maps and handouts there. We'll get that packet posted as well, make sure it stays available.
I like the way they have it laid out.
They do.
Yeah.
Good
And
job.
they were very responsive to the concerns we've heard prior meetings. so
Absolutely.
I appreciate that.
I would just ask that those big lots don't
I want to make sure.
change.
Yep.
Correct.
And as
They
much
stay
as,
as is.
Yeah.
and that's,
We can work on that.
yep,
you know.
I think,
Well, and maybe can that be a condition of the development?
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the biggest concern from the residents in the neighborhood is that
Mhm.
just the development speed and if things progress differently, making sure that they're not changed
Mhm.
in a different phase, so.
Well, they'd have to
They've
come,
honest-
they'd have to come back to zoning if they wanted to change it
Right.
anyway, and council, so
Exactly.
they can't just change it.
Well, and it's making sure the agreement's written that way, so.
Yeah.
All right, on to our letter B for. Old-
I'd like to address one other thing in this project, and this is an email from Ryland to Ari. And it talks about in the last sentence, I would like a Teams meeting to discuss and answer your questions. Joe, Renee, and I are available for such meeting. This was written on March 6th. I'm just thinking now that we have our city administrator in place, that I believe that the city administrator needs to be a team member that is in on all the conversations that are going on here. And I'm thinking that if we've got the city administrator, then it would make sense to have maybe one person from the city council and one person from planning and zoning as that team.
I agree.
And so I don't have a problem with Ryland being on that team at all, but I'm thinking that Joe Palin and Renee, that they have not been put into the positions that the planning and zoning, the city council, and now the new city administrator are. So I would like to see that team made up of those three components.
So,
It would be the city administrator.
Okay.
One member of city council, and one member of planning and zoning. And if Joe Palin, because he is an engineer, needs to be in on those meetings, privy to the conversation, but not necessarily a deciding factor in what is taking place, it just seems to me that our city council, planning and zoning, and city administrator, that they are all invested and part of the city as either a staffer or an elected. And that just makes a lot more sense to me than having a staffer, another staffer, and one member of city council that are making important decisions about the development of the city. That's my proposal.
Yeah,
I
I
would agree
couldn't
with
tell
that.
if this was actually
Yeah.
making decisions or just answering questions they might have about how to go forward.
Well, and at this point, now that we have our city administrator, it makes sense to make that team that answers questions, the same team that has
And
that has
Renee-
actually been put in place for the decision-making processes.
Right, and
Yeah.
Renee would have been serving that before the city administrator was hired. I mean, she was as
Yes.
close as you could come.
And now she can be put
Right.
back into more of her deputy clerk
Right.
position. and we can let our city administrator step into the shoes that he
Right.
was hired to fill.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that was just,
Yeah, that makes sense.
No, and it totally makes sense that that was what we had at the moment. There's no criticism in this statement that I'm making whatsoever. I'm just saying that now that we have a fuller team within the city, that makes sense to me. So, and just my thought.
I mean, Joe's important in terms of the engineering.
Mhm.
He should be
Hard, I-
supporting the decisions that others. come up with.
Exactly.
He
He
should
should
not be
be-
the decision maker.
He should be lending to the conversation to help those people make a sound decision based out of an engineering.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly,
background.
but he's an important piece of information.
Absolutely.
In a similar way, when Phil was also supporting us, saying, make sure you've got your findings in fact, you know, it's supporting the decisions that the groups come up with.
So do we make a recommendation about that? Should I make a motion to that effect?
Could you just read me off the names on that again? So either what positions or?
It would be city administrator,
Yep,
one member of city council, one member of planning and zoning, and then consulting with the engineer.
okay. Yep,
Should the mayor be involved in that? Because the mayor is.
if they are the member of council. Now, I do know, just having looked at us stuff previously, that when I've talked and reached out on other zoning questions with the League of Minnesota Cities in their mayor's handbook, they actually said their excellent first contact for the city, but when they're getting to the sophisticated development side of it, more a formal approval and making sure that it's not, although you might be eager to do things, that if you have a mayor in that position, sometimes it's something you want to avoid. Let me see,
I just
give me a
meant as
moment,
part of
yeah,
the discussion, I mean, because the
Yeah.
mayor is a key
is a key, but
part
But
of.
it's also a part of council, and it's a 5-member council that we operate with, the way the city is set up.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just used
So
to
just, I'm
having a
just, you know,
mayor.
making a point that
well,
it's.
there's, now we're talking civics class, there's a strong mayor model and there's a weak mayor model of when you set up city governments, and we run a weak mayor model, I believe.
Equal votes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
equal
equal
votes.
votes.
So it's a difference
No
between
veto.
an A and a B.
It's not a.
Well, no,
Or is that more about the city
And let me-
administrator? Right, we're an A, correct?
We're a-
I found it. So the Minnesota Mayor's Handbook from League of Minnesota Cities says, it's page 15 out of page 76 of their handbook that's out there, and what it's talking about is the zoning side of cities. As a mayor, it's critical to be aware that a city has tremendous power to regulate land use, and that power itself is regulated by state law. The cities the decision makes must follow a dictated process, cannot occur without the authority and approval of a majority of council. And often individuals and organizations come to the mayor as a parent head of the city and propose a land use project, which is absolutely, I'm sure people contact you all the time, which makes sense. While the mayor may be an excellent first contact for requests to the city, whether a sophisticated development company or the lone resident looking for help, so whatever situation it might be, the party might need, so that lone resident or the development company might need to be reminded that formal approval requires the consideration of the full council, if not a planning commission first. So that initial conversation, great, but it's great to have that
It's
and
been
refer it on.
everything that comes out of.
Yep,
my
and
mouth
then
is-
a mayor may, a mayor may understandably be eager to encourage developers with personal commitments to see a project approved, but this is something to avoid. So just from the mayor handbook that's out there from League of Minnesota Cities, and I would say that would, if you're looking to that process, as a mayor of council, mayor could be the member of council rep, but it would fit with the handbook to have a single member of council, whoever that might be. Not necessarily by title, the mayor or the vice assistant, whatever the other titles are on council there, but
Yeah, none of those single people can give approval.
no
anyway.
single person. And
Right.
I think it's just making sure that the perception's never given that talking to this group. You can answer questions, but it's not gonna be an approval process. It still needs to come through the correct channels and avoid even the perception that they might have some kind of stamp of approval.
Right.
Well, that could get the city in trouble
Absolutely.
if any of that kind of stuff was ever going on. So, yeah.
But it makes sense. The lawyers up there at the League of Minnesota Cities actually put it into their, I knew I'd read something there at some point, so.
If I may suggest something, they just want to come up with a distinct description of that group. Just so everybody's clear, not like a job description, but just what the focus of the it's supposed to do.
And what I wrote down, Mr. Mayor, is that the team would be comprised of the city administrator, one member of city council, one member of planning and zoning, plus a consultant, which would be our engineer. That was kind of what
As
I was
needed.
thinking.
On the, would you do as needed on the consultant?
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
actually, I have a question about this memo here. I would like, if you would like a Teams meeting to discuss, does that mean the Teams meeting could have been with Joe, or it could have been with you, or it could have been with Renee? Or were you proposing that all three of you be available on a Teams meeting?
It says Joe, Renee, and I are available for such a meeting. So it sounds pretty specific to that Teams meeting concept.
Teams is software.
Yes.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Ah,
yeah, I don't think he was referring to
a
the
team.
team.
Yeah,
It's Teams as in the software,
It's like a
Yeah.
Zoom. It's a. computer.
Microsoft Teams.
So I don't think it was.
Instead of calling it a
necessarily
Zoom
proposing
meeting.
a whole Team
Instead of
meeting.
Zoom, it's Teams.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
I like using the word clean
One-time deal.
expectations.
yes.
Okay,
It's using-
got it. So it could have said if you would like a Zoom meeting.
Yep.
Yeah.
Got
Yes.
it.
Teams is the Microsoft version of Zoom.
Okay.
Right, and I guess in reading that, I would take it as the three of them. Cause, well, obviously you wouldn't wanna meet one person with them, you know.
Yeah,
We wouldn't want the
Well,
mayor
it's-
meeting with them, or we wouldn't want Renee meeting with them by themselves. You know what I'm
well, and
saying?
if you look at
Well,
this,
except if it's, how do you fill out this form? What
Yeah.
are you looking for? I mean, because
It's a
well, I work,
basic questions, but not decision making.
Yeah.
right,
Yeah, those
so,
kind of
you
things
know,
you
I
come to the
work
office.
in.
Make a recommendation.
Right,
Right.
environmental health, so oftentimes it's like X, Y, Z are available by Teams if you have questions. It's not that we're all gonna be involved, but, you know, here are resources if you've got questions.
yeah,
But
if
I
you
do
also,
like,
So, you know, this person is the person who's gonna handle licensing questions. These are the people who are gonna handle questions about, you know, the rules and regulations you have to follow.
if you look at this also, the date on that memo was March 6th.
Yeah, that was.
And that was before Jason came on, and so those were things that were done prior to what's going on and what's happening right now.
Well, and
Yeah.
maybe I don't understand, and anybody correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like to me that for Hamilton Group, the first point of contact from this moment forward should be the city administrator, shouldn't it?
yes.
Okay,
Yep.
that's what I'm thinking. And if it requires a team to get together and start working on, you know, timeframes for development or whatever it is that they have to kick around, that it would definitely go to Jason, but then maybe you would pull your team together of those different components if it was something that needs to be.
It's almost a
Fleshed out.
subcommittee is what you're really looking at on
Yeah.
having it and that to work
Your
with.
permitting process and time limits will kind of dictate things moving along and getting bills.
And I still like, and it could certainly be something for you that if you do need to pull stuff together, pull one person from zoning, pull somebody from council and yourself if needed. Yeah. I think that's solid.
I think it's a great recommendation. I think it's the right way to do it.
And I like what they've done, honestly, I think.
Yeah, they
Yep.
actually did an excellent job.
But I think we're gonna get other development questions coming up. I think there's gonna be, certainly as sewer and water are up and running, there's gonna certainly be more pressure and interest coming from other areas, and so it's a good
It's good
process
to
to come
have-
through as more questions come forward and other developers approach the city to hit Jason up and have him pull people in.
Yeah. So that was the only thing I had left about Hamilton Group.
No, I think that's good feedback there.
Okay.
Do you want to go forward and have a motion for that or leave it as discussion?
Well, let's talk about that as a group. Do we think that it would be
Well, yeah, but-
beneficial
Got the
to?
motion first.
Okay, then let's go ahead and we've been having discussion without a motion, which I understand is not the orthodox thing to do. But I make a motion that we create a commission for working with Hamilton Real Estate Group that would consist of our city administrator, one city council member, one planning and zoning commissioner, and as needed, consulting with the city engineer.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a first and a second to that motion on the floor. Is there any more discussion?
I guess,
Also, you gotta be careful what you call it, commission. I don't think we can call that a commission. We
Okay,
can call it a task force, but.
Okay.
I like that.
Okay, task force.
task force works.
Right.
Thank you.
If it's something that's just a short-lived thing, like it's for this one specific area,
Mhm.
that's where we get into task force, things like that, subcommittees are another term, but usually task force is the common.
I take that as a friendly amendment.
So then.
Good with that?
Committees are
Yeah.
like the top end, like you folks are. It's a little bit more established. There's a lot more rules and procedures that fall with it. And other things like that. Whereas the task force, like, we don't have to hold an open thing. It can just be, hey, we're gonna get together and
You don't have to publish a
Yeah.
notice of,
publish it. We don't do all that, but committees and commissions,
Ad hoc,
those
that's
have to be
great.
published and have time and all that other stuff. So the task force are in there specifically for that reason.
So I accept that friendly amendment.
so we have a motion on the floor that has been amended with task force and you had accepted that as a amendment there. Any more discussion on the task force motion that we have going forward here?
I mean, wasn't it, I mean, it was, I know we didn't always agree with how things happened, but they always came to Sunny, who was the city administrator before. So I think it's already common practice, except when we were in this transition phase, that the first point of contact is your city administrator. And so we had a pretty long transition there. So I'm not sure we need this because I think that that's how things happen already, is that
I
it
think
goes,
it's, yeah,
I mean, it's not bad, but I don't know that it's.
We have a better idea if some things are, I mean, things kind of went south.
This
For me, it
kind
seemed
of,
like it went south pretty quickly
this
there.
kind of keeps everybody in the know with
Yeah,
one
people know
member.
what's going on, at
different-
least.
at each
areas.
monthly meeting, there can be an update of what's going on as things come up. I think it's good as far as, setting an idea and a precedent and putting something down formally to give to council as far as future ones come up too, that we create or our city administrator can also start, a task force if we have future ones. The ad hoc side of it, and it can keep things going when we do only meet once a month as well.
So you need to take both.
Yeah, any more discussion? Thank you. That's good feedback. Any more discussion? All in favor of the motion for the task force? Say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It passes. So we have a recommendation going to council to create the task force composed of those particular people.
It was for Hamilton.
Or,
specifically.
yes, specifically, and we'll
For
get
this
this.
development specifically. Yeah.
Good. Any other questions or discussion coming out of Hamilton before we move on? All right, letter B, we have a new planning and zoning commissioner. You want to have an inaugural speech?
You only have 30 minutes to get this done.
Do we have to swear him in?
I do not have anything to swear him in.
Recommendation to council.
I think we've already put him in council last month.
last
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's
Then we
already.
need a speech.
Speech, oh boy.
Inaugural
Acceptance
ball.
speech, right?
There'll be an inaugural ball to be
And I
held.
think he's supposed to buy the pizza.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if you want to say 30 seconds. Just give us whatever you want us to know about.
Yeah, I'm John Evans. I've been in Norco here for about 10 years. My wife is a lifelong resident. We live on the west side of the road. I've been in the building industry for over 35 years, so I have some knowledge on this end of it. So just happy to be here, be a part of the community.
Well, thanks for.
We're happy to have you.
Welcome.
And we love your dogs.
You do, don't you?
Yes, I
Oh,
do.
yeah. Lives that way, you guys?
Yeah.
Okay.
Very good.
Oh, welcome. Glad to have you.
Thank you. Thanks for joining.
Let's go ahead with someone with the building experience.
Yeah, be helpful.
Definitely.
We have no further questions we're going to throw at you tonight, so thank you for joining. Yeah.
That wasn't too bad.
No, not too bad at all. Letter C, our next on the agenda is update. So with that, we have WSB. We have a project update. Lori Johnson is our rep that we've been in contact with, and she is working on putting together a kickoff meeting now. They've already received a Word version of the code, the one that I had put together last year. They were not able to get one from Stantec. We did check and Stantec did not have it in a Word, so I did give them the one I had thrown together. We do have a tentative date. She had looked at a bunch of different dates in April. None of them really seem to come back with a strong, this is the date that we can go with. So we are looking right now tentatively with a May 8th kickoff date. That would be a date with council, planning and zoning, members of EDA, our city administrator, any other staff members, whoever we think might be appropriate to go to that meeting. That would be kind of their, and our steering committee. We've got a couple of community members as well that are on the task force. So there's a steering committee that goes along with this, and what the whole concept is to take our code as it is today, and as we saw tonight with the sign discussion, we know we got some problems. We're trying to fix them because what we want to do is get code that doesn't contradict each other or different spots. We want to have code that, as requests can come through, can really focus and answer 90 to 95% of the requests that come through. At the end of the day, we should just truly be seeing exceptions and things that make sense should be getting answered by the code. So we are working with a consultant to get that process rolling and done. All of us have full-time day jobs for the most part, and none of us are policy wonks that want to sit and go through. I think we're at about 600 pages long of the Word doc when we were looking at it. So I'm happy to have a consultant do that and help us guide us through that process. So at the end of this process, we will have much stronger code and be able to go forward as we get more development and lot splits, and people just want to add a deck on or do some garage work, it should help address a lot of that. So the kickoff though, working with WSB is tentatively May 8th. And did we get a time on that? Was it going to be 6 o'clock? And knowing that maybe there will be folks that may or may not be able to make it, but I think we've got to.
Wednesday night.
A Wednesday?
Yep. So I'll probably drop somebody off a confirmation, drive over here for the meeting, and hopefully somebody else can pick my kid up from church when it's all done, but that is the tentative date and it will be here at City Hall. So I did, in giving her the Word doc as well, I've had an ongoing list of my own personal list as we've had conversations over the last, 2 years. And it's a long growing list of things that we need to fix in the code. So part of that discussion may be, rather than wait until everything's perfect and 100% done, we might wait till 85% of it's done, and we might have 5 or maybe a 10% or maybe another 5 along the way, where we know we've got some pressing issues right now to address. And we may say, rather than put 100% into production all at once and live, let's do a little bit of it early to address some of those glaring issues that we've got going on. So that might be something we'll talk about as well at that May meeting and kick that off. Questions, concerns, discussion? All right. So if that works, great. If it doesn't, we aren't gonna, penalize anybody and make them sing it in front of the next meeting or bring treats or anything. But, you certainly are welcome to bring treats. We won't stop you. Anything else? Otherwise, we'll move on to update incoming zoning applications and questions. So we have, just for you there, something over the last year or so we've been requesting just to kind of help us understand. We only normally have seen historically what shows up as public hearings. And we've requested, and we've been getting a little bit, we've gotten more feedback in the last month or two, and it's getting stronger from the city as far as what other requests are coming through, just so we know as we work on the code, if we're getting 95 swimming pool requests with people wanting to put in swimming pools and they're not meeting code, that's the section of the code we want to start looking at first. So that's just something we've been trying to get a better ballpark on what's going on with the city and where do we need to work on it the most. So with that, we have asked for just kind of a running list from the city of what applications we took in. Maybe some of them are pending. And so that is just maybe ongoing, and me and you can talk about that later too, as far as just to give us a rough tally each month of what we've got coming. And with that, we've got a page in our packet, and what was the page on that?
It's not numbered, it's at the very last page in the packet. And the only thing I would make a comment, I was just a little bit more information on permit number 240017. And I think we might need to have a little bit of Phil's advice on that one too, but I just want to check and see what that one is. So if we can get some more information on that, that would be great.
I'm also curious about 240015, 14, and 12. Of the one that you mentioned and those three, none of those have addresses. And I'm just curious as to why there's no address related to those permits.
Good point. I didn't see that.
Yeah.
You think all 1, 2 through 1, 5 or 1, 1 through 1, well, aren't they hooking up to the sewer?
Are you talking about these three?
Yeah,
It
well,
says
I
plumbing.
think all these are just hook up into, all.
I'm just wondering why they don't have the addresses in there.
It might be just a dual thing, like she's kind of talking about, like hook up and excavating. Because a lot of time when they come in, they get their excavate to do the work. They get the meter and they get the hookup. And it's three things, but it's all the same address. So I don't know if that just got put in there as not put an address, because you kind of look at it and there's one next to the other, each one of them.
Yeah, 745 got a hookup and an excavating already, and the two in between it don't have an address.
Well, we got 11 and 12 would go together, 13 and 14 would go together, 15 and 16 would go together.
It looks like 16 and 13 go together with them being the same address.
Okay, yeah.
So those two do go together, and
Yeah,
so those
so-
other three, that doesn't make sense.
Well, and if
There's
you
no
look at
address.
the dates on them too, you can figure it out by the dates.
Yeah.
If it's the
Good
same.
information to have, so
Yeah.
Yeah, we should have.
we should have that.
Yeah, just to have all the addresses.
So looking at those, it looks like there's two of the groupings that could, well, two on the 14th, that both have no address. So that one,
Yeah, one's hookup and excavating. I think that's what Jason's talking about.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
yep, and same thing on the 13th, they're both excavating on the 13th.
Well, they have the same exact, one is open and then the other one is closed. On the 1-3 and 1-2. If you look in the main status category. So that would make sense that those would be the same address. but I never would have figured that out.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jason.
So close the excavating and the hookup is still open, because they're doing it. It's 16.
Yeah, it looks like all the excavating ones are closed. And I know they come in groups sometimes, they've been coming in and they're like, we've got this little neighborhood of 3 or 4 people that work together to bring in an excavator. We're all doing theirs together and
And all the electrical, that's what they're doing up by,
Well, that would
up by
make
me
sense.
right now.
so they're trying to figure that out.
Makes sense. So I appreciate though that we're seeing information coming to us,
Yeah, this is good.
because I don't see any swimming pools for this month. I don't know.
I haven't seen one come across this.
Yes,
No,
So, yeah,
so that won't be higher on the code yet, on the list, on my wish list.
most of them have been this plumbing, this water hookup stuff.
Yeah.
That's been, I'd say probably 95% of our stuff.
Mhm.
Got a couple burning permits come through, people starting to burn leaves and tree branches and whatnot, but.
And that's good, they're coming in for that, because we've had some red flags and some other high wind stuff out there, so.
But most of them are these ones that we've had come through. I think there's been a couple of routines in the past month that I've seen on the list, and then I know we just recently, like yesterday, had a couple permits, like building permits come in. There was I think a detached garage that'll come in the next one for you guys. The detached garage and the other one for it. Oh, it's on the work in the basement. So they're doing stuff in their basement, putting in like a bedroom or something like that, so.
Great. So I like having this in our packet every month, so I appreciate it. Are we on month 2 maybe of this?
I think so.
No, yeah, it's been more than that. I think
Couple months.
you've been doing pretty good. Renee's been.
Yeah, Renee's been,
Yeah,
so I appreciate,
I think at least 3.
yeah, so I appreciate that information.
Most I like to take credit, yeah, that's all Renee. I'll take credit for it though.
You can thank her for us, how's that?
Yeah. Anything more on incoming zoning applications and questions? Any more feedback? All right.
I'll say this one more thing, we are seeing a little bit more of a pickup in turnaround time on permits. Because we are now, CMS, sorry. They are now using the system that we've been using for a few years, and they just got it implemented this last week, and so they're speeding up their process a little bit because it's more conducive with us because we got them into using it. And so we're seeing a little bit as they're getting more and more of them going through, our times are picking up a little bit.
So your network,
Yeah,
nice.
so.
Good.
Well, I think that'll just continue to get better. And I did have them in today to help put in a bunch of permits, and we're gonna look at training for our office staff to make sure that everybody's up to speed with the programming and how it operates and functionalities, so we can
That is
make it go
fantastic.
quicker and better and more efficiently, so.
Yeah, work smarter, not harder.
Yep.
Any other feedback? That's great.
Mhm.
I appreciate that. Well, we'll move on to our last update, which is the garage replacement structure. So. And that's letter E that we had added.
That Mr. Phillips added.
Mr. P.
What, no, I just turned around and wanted more information on 240017, okay, which is an office remodel.
No, we were talking about herbs.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah,
No,
Irv,
but-
I don't
Go ahead.
know where we're at with that. I think that Irv had given his prints to everything that he was to do the build of the garage and office, whatever. But I don't know where it went with that, and he doesn't know where it's at either.
So
So
that
he
might
had
be-
called CMS, CMS has not heard anything about that. So it's kind of in between, so do you know where that's at, Ryan?
No, I don't, but I would say as a result of the discussion we had today, or Jason had with CMS, I think it's good to call City Hall because they know where it's at, or they should, or if it's at CMS, but they can look it up automatically now in the software package, so.
Okay, I mean, that, Irv just called me today and said, I don't see it on the P and Z. And I'm saying, well, I don't know where it went, but again, until we get a permit or a variance to be able to do it. it's
So to
not
give
gonna
you a
be
little
okay.
background, there was a structure that was downtown that burned down.
Behind the VFW.
That's a barn.
Yep.
Is there,
But it was a historical building, right?
Yep, so historical barn, and long story short, Colleen did some good research. There's some state statutes looking at our code, which we know we've got some updating to do. He is trying to put a replacement building that would replace the same use and similar to what it was.
Yep.
Knowing that you can't build a 120 or however old building, 18 something barn. But trying to do something to still give him, we've got a historical district downtown, and so trying to work with that, but still get something built. So
Yeah.
that's what we're trying to figure out, and there's a bunch of information back if you look at our prior meetings that are out there. So if we could figure out for him where that is into the process, and if necessary, if there's a public hearing that needs to get scheduled for that next month, see where we're at.
It might be a Renee question when she comes back.
yeah, cause it's been, you can't build a garage unless you have a house. And he's not putting a house there because there was a barn there.
Yeah, there was not a
It's-
house.
It's.
And it has
in
to
the
do with
middle
what
there.
percentage was destroyed by the fire and having to rebuild it with
Yeah.
less than that percent.
It's, yeah.
There's a lot goes into that kind of.
Yep,
stuff.
there is. So
It was
if we could
unfortunate.
figure out where we're
Yeah,
at on
just a
that.
few doors down too.
Yep, so figure out where that one's at and get that, if necessary, on our agenda for next month, so that if there's a public hearing that needs to be done, so we can continue to move forward on that, that would be good.
Okay, that was it. So just want to get in the minutes. So, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
For a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, 8:45.